Hi everyone, so I'm Liam, so welcome back to my channel. So today's I'm going to learn English, but uh, usually I start by recording a video to shadows a postcard or something, or read out loud an article. But today's um, I want to learn vocabulary first. I want to mm, uh, the ways I learn vocabularies is learn vocabulary by uh, with with the context. I mean, I don't learn vocabulary by learn single word. I put it in the context, like the context today is natural disaster vocabulary. So that help me easy to remember the word and uh, create the connection between the words and the context that help my brain uh, create the connections with the word. So yeah, that's and after that I will shadow a video. So okay, let's get started. Also, guys, I just learned some vocabularies about natural disaster. Um, what I just went to the downstairs and get some waters and a plate of papaya. So please eat fruits to keep your health. It's Fruits can make your health better and good. So now I'm going to shadow on a podcast. Sorry. How to describe a cities. This podcast from this podcast come from WhatsApp English channel. The owner of this channel is Mr. Carlos. He is a Canadian, so he speaks very slow and clear. That very easy to listen and shadow.
To talk about big cities
Big
like
city,
Hanoi,
Hanoi,
Ho Chi Minh City,
cities.
and then
And
in the second part, I'm going to talk about smaller cities or villages, towns in the countryside. So whether you are from a big city or a small city, this podcast will be very useful for you. So first, I'm going to talk about Hanoi. This is the city that I live in right now. And this is by far the biggest city I've ever lived in my life. I believe the population of Hanoi is around 7 to 8 million. And it's a pretty big city. I believe they are expanding the limits of the city
cities
to other
to
areas,
the other areas,
which is
which is
often what
often
happens
with
cities,
cities.
as it kind of
It's kind of
swallows up these
swallow
other
this
areas
area
that are being
that being
developed.
developed.
So the
The
layout
layout
of Hanoi is, of course, we've
we
got
the
the center. There's many districts around the center area, like Haibachung district,
Haibachung
Hoan
district,
Kiem.
Hoan Kiem.
And so in the middle, there's a lake called Hoan Kiem Lake. And if we go up north, we have West Lake. And I believe those are the two main lakes. There's also a river that goes through Hanoi called the Red River. I know in Vietnamese the translation is Pink River, but in English we call it the Red River. So, if you go
Sorry, I feel, a bit thirsty. So I need to get some water. And then I have a papayas. Very yummy. It's very sweet. Okay, let's continue.
English we call it the
Red
River. So
if
you go to Hanoi and you go to the tourist area called the Old Quarter, you will notice that the roads there are different than outside of the Old Quarter. The architecture is also different because when the French were there, they had a big influence on the architecture. I did a bit of research before doing this podcast. So if some things are a little bit inaccurate, you can let me know in the comments. Again, this isn't a history podcast, but just an English podcast. So some things might be wrong. And so in the Old Quarter, there's a lot of narrow roads and alleys. And I find those really interesting because in those alleys and those narrow roads, there are a lot of kind of hidden places like shops, places to get a haircut, places to eat. And the feelings in the Old Quarter, I think is really unique. It has a vintage, kind of old-fashioned style to it because they want to preserve the history in that area. And I think that's great. Also, many of the streets in the Old Quarter are named after what they sell. For example, I think there's a street called like Silver Street, Hang Bak, and many other things. So if you're talking about these streets, you can say a lot of the streets are named after what they sell. And the roads are narrow. There's quite a lot of people selling things on the street. There are a lot of tourists in that area. And if you leave the Old Quarter, you'll notice that the roads become wider and it gets a bit more open. It's a bit less congested and full of traffic. So if we move on and talk a little bit about the infrastructure in Hanoi. Infrastructure is like the kind of like the skeleton of the city. It's like what keeps everything together. It helps the city function. For example, the sewers. Those are a part of the infrastructure. And the electricity. So in Hanoi, they have a lot of buses, like city buses. They have the SkyTrain. I think it's called the SkyTrain. And this is new. It was under construction for a long time, but they finally finished it. and I think a lot of people are happy with it. Me, I've
I've
never
never ridden
ridden the
a
SkyTrain yet, but I heard it's pretty convenient to get from one side of the city to the other. Well, actually, maybe it doesn't go all the way across the city. I should know this, but I'm not totally sure. And this type of public transport can be very useful.
Oh my god, guys, I feel very thirsty when I try to shadow the podcast, because there are a lot of sentences I have to shadow, yeah, but it's okay. And because during rush hours
the traffic can be crazy, and sometimes it gets completely gridlocked. Like there's a complete traffic jam, and you can't move for like 20 minutes. So taking the SkyTrain could be pretty convenient. Now, some pros and cons to living in Hanoi. Some of the pros I would say are the culture is really historic and interesting. The food is delicious. If you're someone who prefers more salty over sweet, then you might like the food in Hanoi more. If you like sweet food, you might like the food in Ho Chi Minh City. Another thing is the cost of living is relatively cheap. It's more expensive than other places in Vietnam, but compared to Canada or compared to many other countries outside Vietnam, the cost of living is very good, very reasonable. Some cons would definitely be the traffic. The traffic sometimes is very stressful, very crowded, and I think that's the same in Ho Chi Minh City and many other big cities. Traffic is a common problem with many big cities around the world. Pollution, there are days where there is quite a bit of pollution that if you can be inside, it's probably better to stay inside. And another thing is noise. So Hanoi is a dense city. That means lots of people live close to each other. And noise can be a problem. Sometimes you hear loud motorbikes at like 3 in the morning. You can hear your neighbors. They have babies. But these are all problems that every big city has. And most people will say, if you don't want to deal with noise, then just don't live in a big city. They have a point. But of course, going back to the pros, I think Hanoi has amazing energy. Like when I go outside on the street and there's people walking around, there's cars, just the energy, you can feel it. And that is one thing I really love about Hanoi. And that's one thing that when I go back to Canada, in my hometown, in Ottawa, we do not have that. At least where I live. I mean, even though if you are downtown in Ottawa, it's not even close. So, there's nice peace and quiet in Canada, but there's some awesome energy in Hanoi, in Ho Chi Minh City, in Vietnam. So now I'm going to talk about the countryside. And I've never lived in the countryside, but I've been out there a few times, and so I will just talk about what I've noticed in the countryside. So in the countryside, of course, there's a lot more peace and quiet. Going to these places is a good way to get away from the hustle bustle of a big city. And the people can be very friendly, can be very welcoming, and they seem very happy. That's what I noticed when I'm in the countryside. Many people have their own kind of small business where they live. Maybe they of course are farmers, or maybe they fix bikes, sell food, and many of them seem just very happy. Another thing is if you live in the countryside, you probably don't need an alarm clock, because there are those roosters and farm animals, we can call it livestock, that will probably wake you up at 5-6 a.m. But that's one thing when I live in the countryside, or when I'm staying at a homestay, is it's kind of nice. Like, I don't like waking up early, but when I wake up with nature, kind of in a natural way, I feel like, okay, it's not so bad, because everyone is waking up. The whole area, the whole community is waking up together, going to the market to sell things, just getting their lives started, just getting back to daily life. And I'm going to try to think of anything else related to the countryside. So one thing is, in the countryside, of course, the infrastructure is not as developed. So I notice people are often lighting fires, burning dead vegetation, maybe garbage. And that is unfortunate, because it does pollute the air. But the people do what they have to do. If there's no other way to do it, then that's just how it is. Hopefully in the future, that type of thing gets fixed. But yeah. So the way we can describe the countryside is, we could say it's very peaceful, it's tranquil, it's relaxing, it's a way to get away from the chaos of the city. It's a way to unwind. You can go there for a weekend if that's your hometown, and you live somewhere else, like the big city. Then you can go back to your hometown for the weekend, unwind, play with the dog or the cat, spend time with your parents, have home cooked food. And so I'm actually gonna have a sip of.
I think that's enough for today. Thank you for listening. And I will see you in the next video. If you like this video, so please hit the like and subscribe button. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for listening. So thank you. Goodbye.